Okay, so Sean and Peter, how you guys doing today?
We're
Wonderful.
good. How are you
It's
doing?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm
All
doing
right.
wonderful. I'm excited to ask you guys a few questions about Kung Fu Panda.
Sounds like a
Um,
good idea.
I've seen a few of the episodes, and wanted to start by asking you guys, how did you guys initially get involved, and how far back does your involvement go with this franchise?
Well, my involvement goes back to a prior series, Kung Fu Panda Legends of Awesomeness, which I ran that show a while ago. And that actually was between the first and second movies. And then did a bunch of other stuff, but I had a relationship with DreamWorks and have done other shows there. And so they asked me if I was interested to come in and work. Basically, for me, it means working with Poe, so which is really fun. So they had this sort of the original idea about Poe, uh, kind of a buddy comedy thing with this knight from England. That was about the whole idea that they had. And then I sort of worked alone and came up with a bunch of stuff, most of which we threw away, and write the pilot script. And then right before the pandemic, started to bring the team together, and that's when I met Shaunt and pitched to him the show. He didn't actually start till we had all gone home. The production's been completely virtual the entire time, although I did not stop working for a day. But for me, basically, it was just kind of exciting and fun because the character is just so good. And this was even Jack Black was not even involved yet, so I was just going on the strength of the character. And then
Okay,
I pitched the show to Sean.
cool. And then, Sean, what was your initial reaction when you got this pitch to you?
It was pretty good. At the very beginning, Peter was pitching, doing a great job pitching the show, and I remember he was telling me about the magic weapons and stuff. I was like, okay, yeah, what, okay, yeah, cool. And then he was like, but what it really is it's a story about Poe and Blade and the relationship, and Poe loses his whatever. And then I kind of started to lean in, like, this is pretty good. And I kind of thought, well, this doesn't sound like a normal Saturday morning type show. And I looked around and everyone's like, no, we don't want it to be. We want this to play to adults, but also for kids to enjoy it. We want it to be cinematic. We want to push the fights like in a different direction. This felt like a show where I could use like all of my skills from all of the types of shows I've worked on, but all in one place. So it was really exciting to me.
Sure. Now, would you guys, what can you guys say about like misconceptions people have about the Kung Fu Panda in general, or the shows themselves, since the franchise goes back so far?
I think, well, here's one thing that I've just, if I put on my hazmat suit and dive into the comments, um, first of all, that Poe is referred to as the Dragon Master, and everyone is like, wait a minute, isn't he the Dragon Warrior? And the canon actually is that at the end of the third movie, he becomes a Dragon Master. He becomes a teacher, which kind of has been dealt with. And then also, I can say out loud that the Furious Five does not appear in this series, because Poe is having a complete adventure on his own and meeting a bunch of new characters. Although his father, Mr. Ping, is in the series, as played by the incredible James Hong. So happy to have him. Um, I don't really think there are any other sort of misconceptions. I mean, I think I've probably seen the question of like, because in the pilot, Poe loses his title. Not really a spoiler. That happens pretty quick,
Yeah.
and he kind of gets pushed down. I think maybe in the gaming world you say he got nerfed, and totally intentional. And it's because Poe is so much fun as the lovable loser who can kick butt, right? So to watch him
Right.
struggle, to watch him work his way back, is great. The other thing is the title that he loses. Yes, that Dragon Warrior is sort of, he's anointed by the universe, okay, but the title is really what's taken away from him, and that's his lesson. That it's like, guess what? That was just a title, because you are who you are, and you always have been. And that is a lesson that he learns, you know, along the way in this new adventure with his new partner.
Okay. And is there anything you wanted to add to that, Sean, or do you think he pretty much covered it?
I think you got it.
Okay.
I know I answered like 9 questions at once.
Oh no, it was awesome. You
Like,
what
just
you
start
have to
talking,
say,
like, what am I saying? I don't even
no,
know.
what you have to say is a lot more interesting than what I have to say. So my next question then would be, obviously there's synopses. I've read synopsis and whatnot for the show, but a lot of times those are aimed at adults or people who can read them. So I was curious if you can maybe give a short synopsis of what the show is for children.
You know, well, I think what I would just say about that in general is generally the synopsis that you need to attach to the show. You know, when you are a creator inside a show, you always feel like, oh, it's missing so much. And I think probably part of it is a lot of the emotional story that happens in this thing. I mean, and again, I don't really think of it in terms of kids or for adults. I think of it as like for people. And Poe is a character that plays across the board. You know, it's sort of like SpongeBob does, like who is the other guy I was just thinking of, now that I've spaced out and I can't think of what I was thinking of.
Probably your friend Rob
Pee-wee and
Paulson.
Pee-wee's Playhouse, you know, kind of works across all of these things. So, you know, because he's goofy, he's fun, he's relatable, he's silly, he makes mistakes. So everything that's appealing in all the Kung Fu Panda properties to kids is present here. And I think, though, what's fun is that we've also added another more mature emotional element, you know, that adults will respond to as well.
You know, speaking of mature, I think when I was looking at your resume, you have done more adult type cartoons like Animaniacs, Pinky and the Brain, and what was the other one? Like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in the 2010s.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff with Rob Paulson in it. He's my buddy, so I saw you did a lot of that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I was
We
curious
go
about
way back.
what kind of shift did you have to do mentally to make it so that you were able to deliver comedy that didn't necessarily appeal to adults as much as it did for a younger audience?
Yeah, I mean, I don't make any shifts at all. It's like what appeals to me. That's basically what appeals to me. That's not inappropriate. That's kind of my thing. It's like, I want to make a show that it's like, oh, that was good. Now I don't want to make a show. It's like, I would never watch that in a million years. So, you know, I don't have to get into a different headspace. So like, you know, if you're making a preschool show, you very deliberately have to go, this is for that very specific audience. I never think of it that way. I just go like across the board, this should be good and entertaining, you know, which is hard.
It's also like, if you think about it, like one of the things that like adult cartoons do is they use like way too many curse words, and they try to like wow you with, you know, a little sex or a little something. And most of the time it feels forced. It doesn't even feel like a natural part of the story. You just feel like they're like just trying to grind adulthood into you. And a lot of times when you differentiate children's programming with adult programming, it's really a matter of quality. You know, the quality, like there are jokes that are just not really that funny that go into shows. I've worked on a ton of them where you have the characters fighting characters and they're like, jinxed you. And then they, you know, throw a punch and a kick and like freeze that, you know, or whatever. And it's like, they're not funny. That's not a funny line actually to anybody. It's just sort of a fill-in kind of line. And Peter doesn't write that way. Peter just writes like good stories. So, you know, the sort of what makes this work for kids and adults is that it's actually good, it's actually funny, and it actually looks great, right? Because a lot of adults, like, they'll watch a show, oh, this is kind of cool, and then you kind of see the quality and you go, oh, okay, this is like a crappy kid show, right? So I think we've sort of, I think part of why this works is that in the old days you had movies and you had TV shows, and now we have this kind of streaming world where, and technology has risen up to a point where we can actually make imperfections in the fur and in the sword and whatever. So all of these things together have made a show that can, as long as you write it well, And as long as you stage it well cinematically and make jokes land and edit and everything, that it will be for everybody.
What kind of stuff have people not asked you about this show that you guys would like to share? Some stuff that you feel like people always ask you the same questions, like, oh, what inspired you? This and that. What would you like to say that you never get to get off your chest? People don't ever touch on in interviews.
But the thing is, people ask me a simple question and then I talk for 5 minutes and I say what I want to say. But I think really there's just a maturity to this particular series that I'm really excited about. And again, not a maturity that's alienating to anybody, just that when you can go into an emotional place. I mean, sort of like when I was pitching Shaunt originally, and it's sort of like, well, here's the superficial stuff, kind of like what you would read in a blurb about, oh, there's a weapon and they're chasing bad guys. And you're like, yeah. But then when you start to get into more of the emotional story about the challenge that the character has, or the backstory, or the toughness, or the sadness that they had and that they need to overcome, and these kind of things, everybody just gets more interested in what's happening. And that's to me is what I would want people to know kind of about this show. We're just bringing some more depth into it, and also it just looks great.
And what about you, Shaunt?
Yeah, I don't know. There's like, we put a lot of time and effort into everything, so when we did our designs for the show, we would sit in the design meeting with Ellen Jin, our art director, and all our art team, and we'd bring the production team in, the writers and everything, and we just have this fun time where anytime we're designing a character, we think like, okay, like what kind of animal would we use, like what region are we in of the world, and what animal have we never seen in Kung Fu Panda before, and how can we make like kind of expand our universe and push that, and then what was the culture in that part of the world at that time. Let's put some of that culture in there, and the way they dress, or in we may put an instrument, but like maybe we're playing it like a guitar, but actually it's not like a guitar. It has to be plucked, or it's held like this. We actually put a lot of time into all those things. We have these 2D sequences that are kind of like in part of the Kung Fu Panda style. We've seen 2D sequences before, but all of ours are told in the point of view of who tells it. So in whenever Poe tells it, it's kind of this cool anime kind of like kick-ass thing. But when someone British tells the story, it's in illuminated manuscript. And we kind of continue that trend throughout the series. We like a lot of different people tell different points of view and different stories. So if you're really looking out for it, you'll see the level of care. We even changed the animation style. Sometimes it's like this, and sometimes it's like,
I noticed that. Yeah. It was awesome.
Yeah, I love the 2D style. The thing I love about the 2D is a lot of times if you look in the art of some movie or something like that, there's all this really cool visual development art that's very stylized. That's not in the movie, right? Because that's just not the style of the movie, or you couldn't afford to do it like that. The 2D sequences are like visual development concept art that we get to take all the way to the screen, that really looks hand done, that's stylized and stuff like that. So those come out really, really well. Love those.
That's really cool. Paige, I see that you unmuted your mic. Did you need to cut us off?
Did I? I did not, but you.
Oh,
1 more minute.
okay. Thank you. So then, just to ask you guys, is there anything that you can tell us about the future of like, without spoilers, is there anything you can talk about towards the end of the series that people can look forward to if they stick through the whole show?
Well, I think, basically we meet a lot of characters along the way. We do all this kind of stuff. And then, and there are multiple stories that really they all sort of collide and come to a head at the end of the season. And then we did something, I find it kind of frustrating when I'm watching a streaming show and it gets to the end of the season and there's so many unanswered questions that it just kind of drives me nuts. It's like, wait, what about this? What about this? What about this? What about this? They didn't wrap them up. And so I just wanted us to get to resolve a whole lot of the questions, yet leave the door open for us to be able to tell more stories as well. And I think we really hit it perfectly with our finale.
And there are things that are sort of set up in our show that are so minute, you may not even like comprehend that they're a setup for something, but should we get a lot of viewership, there's a lot of fun stuff ahead.
Awesome.
I'm confident, Shaunt, that you will get a lot of viewership. And
Yeah,
you know, I stand behind you 100%.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Peter.
I
You
didn't
too.
expect to get sucked in, but I kept watching them. Even when I shut my laptop, it was still playing, and I was like, "Oh, well, at least I can hear it."
So I have to open it again.
Is there any last things you'd like to say before we wrap?
We're super happy with our cast. Jack Black is back in the show. Jack is just killer. He's so much fun. He does so much to set the tone. And I, you know, just spent a lot of time working with him, and he's always makes the extra effort, wants to do one more take. Rita Ora is playing Wandering Blade. You know, Rita is a huge pop star. She's all, you know, like all over the world doing stuff all the time. And this is her first real voiceover gig, and she got it so fast. She does a great voice, and she has a really, really a great sounding voice and a great attitude. And then James Hong as Mr. Ping, 93-year-old James Hong, coming in and killing it all the time. So fun to work with. He'll do 5 takes of a line. They're all different. They all work. And he's just fun. So really happy to have all those guys back and sort of driving the train.
Okay. Anything from you, Sean, or you think we pretty much covered it?
I think Peter nailed it.
Yeah, he handles all the, you know, honestly, he answers questions for both of you and then some.
Yeah.
I know. You don't understand. It's like you spend 2 years working on the show, you start to, you know, there's a log jam there.
You made my job really easy because
Okay.
I didn't have to ask too many questions. Well, I appreciate you guys speaking with me today. Honestly, it was a great time, and I genuinely hope that the show sees great success. And thanks for continuing to make great animation.
Okay, thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
Easy.
Appreciate it.